In the hills of central Bulgaria, just outside the dusty town of Stara Zagora, there's a place where centuries-old traditions still breathe loud, colorful, and unsettling. Once every spring, families gather in a crowded parking lot. Daughters barely 16 are dressed in glittering gowns, thick makeup, and nervous smiles. They twirl to loud music, laughing, or pretending to. Around them, men watch. Some are curious, others are buyers. Mothers whisper prices, fathers nod. It looks like a festival, but feels like a transaction. This isn't a movie set. This is the bride market, a tradition they call sacred, a spectacle that feels like a sale. And one question hangs heavy in the air. What is the price of a girl's future? Number 1, the origin of the bride market. To understand this tradition, one that stirs both fascination and discomfort, we first need to travel back in time and trace its roots. The bride market of Kalaiji isn't a modern invention. It's not a viral gimmick or a fabricated tale. This tradition, however jarring it might seem today, is deeply embedded in the cultural fabric of a nomadic minority in Bulgaria, the Roma Kalaiji. The Kalaiji are a subgroup of the larger Roma population, known for their strong sense of identity, strict endogamy, and a fiercely preserved set of customs. In Bulgaria, the Roma community makes up nearly 12% of the total population, according to the Bulgarian National Statistical Institute's latest report in 2025. Yet within that group, the Kalaiji are a smaller, more insular clan, deeply proud of their heritage and determined to keep their bloodlines unbroken. Historically, the bride market wasn't designed to shock or exploit. It began with a simple intention to help young men and women from different regions of the same community find each other. Traveling merchants, herders, craftsmen, most of them lived scattered across rural Bulgaria. Life was hard. Isolation was common. So once a year, usually during spring festivals or major religious holidays like St. Todor's Day, families would gather. Not in shame, but in celebration. Think of it like a cultural fair where tradition, music, and matchmaking all came together. But as the years rolled by, something changed.
There's this one boy I think is really cute right now.
Не е мой вкус.
No?
No. No.
What kind of boys do you like?
Oh my god! He looks terrifying! Jesus! You would kiss him?
The market gradually lost its original innocence. What once resembled a festive gathering slowly turned into a negotiation floor. Instead of letting young people meet and talk freely, it became a space where parents bargained behind closed lips, where the qualities of a daughter were whispered like items on a checklist. And above all, price. Not dowry, not gifts, but something eerily close to a transaction. A sale. What's more unsettling is that this shift didn't happen in the shadows. It happened in broad daylight on concrete parking lots and public squares, with teenagers dolled up like porcelain dolls circling nervously, while strangers judged them like livestock. According to the latest findings by the European Roma Rights Center, over 70% of Kalaiji girls are withdrawn from school before the age of 16, largely to prepare for marriage. And that's not just a number. That's a future being paused or erased before it even begins. It's important to note this isn't about demonizing an entire culture. Traditions like people evolve, some for better, some for worse. But the bride market in its current form stands at a fragile crossroads between heritage and harm, between pride and pressure. Many elders in the community argue that this is their way of protecting identity, that allowing their children to marry outside the group would mean losing their lineage. For them, this market is not just about marriage, it's about survival of culture. And for a community that has faced centuries of exclusion and discrimination, holding on to anything that feels theirs is not just understandable, it's human. But intentions can't always justify impact. What happens when a cultural ritual turns into a commodified spectacle? What happens when young girls, instead of being nurtured and educated, are evaluated like property? It's a painful irony in the name of preserving tradition. Some lives are being pre-written with chapters of early marriage, domestic confinement, and lost potential. And so here we are, in the middle of Bulgaria in the 21st century, watching a custom that began with unity and belonging evolve into something far more complicated. Not evil, not black and white, but deeply gray. The Kalaji bride market is a mirror. It reflects not just one community's past, but our collective struggle between holding on to what was and reimagining what could be. Number 2, how the bride market works. To understand the inner workings of the Kalaji bride market, you need to picture something that looks almost like a street fair, but underneath the music and bright dresses lies a ritual that feels far heavier than celebration. These markets are not held in some remote village or hidden hall. They often take place in plain sight in public spaces like empty lots, parking areas, or open fields near towns such as Stara Zagora. Once a year, often around Easter or religious spring festivals, dozens, sometimes hundreds of families travel long distances to gather. It's loud, it's vibrant, it's festive, at first glance. Now let's take a closer look. The girls, usually between the ages of 13 and 17, are prepared meticulously by their families, especially their mothers. Their makeup is thick, often overdone, their hair sculpted into elegant curls, and their clothes shiny, bold, even glamorous, like something out of a beauty pageant. But this is no pageant. This is presentation, a performance, one with very real consequences. These girls are coached on how to walk, smile, speak modestly, and most importantly, how to look desirable but pure. The paradox is striking. They are dressed to attract, yet judged for innocence. Virginity here is currency. As the event unfolds, boys and their families arrive and begin what looks like mingling, but behind the handshakes and small talk are serious negotiations. It's not the young couple who do most of the talking, it's their parents. Mothers and fathers quietly trade questions. Is she a virgin? Does she know how to cook? What level of school did she reach? Has she ever spoken to boys online? In many cases, the girl has little to no say in this process. She is quite literally being considered evaluated like a product on display, and yes, a price is often discussed. While Kalaji families may avoid the word buy, the truth is harder to dance around. What's exchanged is not a dowry in the traditional sense, but a sum of money from the groom's family to the bride's. Depending on the girl's perceived value, this price can range anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 Bulgarian leva, that's roughly 3,000 to 11,000 US dollars. The factors that influence this: her age, beauty reputation, cooking skills, and most heavily her virginity. According to a 2024 field report by the Balkan Roma Studies Center, about 65% of marriages in the Kalaji community are arranged or semi-arranged through markets like these. And while some argue that families can refuse or negotiate in reality, most girls are under tremendous pressure to accept the arrangement, especially when the family's economic survival depends on it. Now imagine this. You're 15. You've barely figured out who you are. You dream of becoming a nurse, or maybe you just want to finish school. But instead, you're standing in a crowded lot, mascara, thick heels, aching, while strangers debate your worth like they're pricing livestock. The contrast is almost cruel. The colors are joyful, the music upbeat, the atmosphere celebratory. Yet beneath it all is a quiet, uneasy truth, a girl's future reduced to a bargain. And perhaps that's the greatest paradox of all. A tradition meant to preserve family honor has evolved into a marketplace of dignity. Because in the Kalaji bride market, every smile hides a question. Am I being chosen or being sold? As we move forward, keep this image in mind. Because understanding how the market works is the first step in questioning whether it should. Number 3. The impact on young girls. Let's be honest, behind the makeup, the dresses, the music, and the so-called celebration of tradition at the Kalaiji bride market, there's a story that's much harder to look at. It's the story of young girls, some as young as 13, being quietly pulled out of school not to pursue a passion or career, but to prepare for marriage. And not the romantic kind. We're talking about arrangements made through whispers, negotiations, and pressure they never agreed to. According to a 2025 report from UNICEF Bulgaria, nearly 68% of Roma girls in the Kalaiji community leave school between the ages of 13 and 15. That's not a statistic. That's a generation of girls whose dreams are cut short before they've had the chance to grow. One minute they're learning math, maybe reading their first novel, and the next they're being taught how to smile at strangers and lower their gaze when asked about their virginity. Yes, virginity. That word isn't just an old-fashioned concept in this context, it's a currency. Girls are taught from an early age that their worth is directly tied to it. And with that comes a life wrapped in control, fear, and shame. They're watched constantly by family, neighbors, even distant relatives, because one rumor, one wrong step can mean losing their so-called value in the marriage market. It's no wonder so many girls grow up feeling more like property than people. When you're raised to be chosen, not to choose, how do you learn to trust your own voice? How do you even find it? And when these marriages happen often before the age of 18, they don't always end in fairy tales. In fact, far from it. A study published in 2024 by the European Women's Rights Observatory found that more than 45% of early marriages within the Roma Kalaiji community result in domestic conflict or violence within the first 5 years. The root cause? Simple. These couples don't know each other. There's no love story, no shared foundation, no space to say no. Girls are expected to obey, boys to dominate. And in that imbalance, abuse finds its way in. What's even more heartbreaking is that many girls blame themselves. Because when you're raised to think of yourself as an object to be evaluated, to be traded, to be bought, then even your pain feels like something you deserve. This creates a brutal ripple effect. Girls who marry young often never return to school. Without education, job opportunities become nearly non-existent. Without income, they remain financially dependent on husbands or in-laws. Without autonomy, the cycle repeats with their daughters and their daughters after that. It's a vicious loop of poverty, silence, and gender inequality. And let's not forget the mental toll. Psychologists working with NGOs in Bulgaria report alarmingly high rates of depression, anxiety, and trauma symptoms among young brides from closed communities like the Kalaiji. One counselor described it like this: "These girls live in invisible cages, beautiful on the outside but heavy with silence. So while the world watches the bride market with curiosity or judgment, it's crucial to remember this. What's happening here is not just cultural, it's deeply personal. It's a loss of childhood, a theft of choice, and a future rewritten without consent. But there is power in knowing. And now that you've heard what lies beneath the glitter and gold, ask yourself, can we truly call it tradition if it costs someone their freedom? Because no tradition, however old, should ever come at the price of a girl's future." Number 4. Voices from within. Let's step away from the statistics for a moment. Because sometimes the raw truth doesn't come from numbers, it comes from voices. Voices that tremble. Voices that carry generations of silence. Voices from the inside. We met Lena on a gray spring morning in Stara Zagora. She was wearing a bright pink dress that didn't quite fit her hair, pulled into curls so tight they looked painful. She was 15 years old. Her eyes, they didn't match the glitter on her cheeks. When we asked how she felt about being here, she shrugged and whispered, "I don't even know who's going to buy me. I just want to go back to school." That one sentence hit like a thunderclap. Because how do you respond when a child talks about being bought like it's normal? Lena's story isn't rare. According to a 2025 survey by the Roma Rights Watch, over 70% of girls interviewed at bride markets said they had no say in whether or not they would attend. Most were told by their parents the night before. Some didn't even know what the trip was about until they arrived. And what about the mothers? We spoke with Milena, a woman in her 40s sitting under the shade of a parked van, watching her daughter pace nervously nearby. Her face was worn, her hands constantly twisting the edge of her scarf. "I don't want this for her," she said quietly. "But I lived through it. My mother lived through it. And without a husband, what will she do? There's no place for an unmarried girl in our world." It's a sentence layered in heartbreak. It's not just tradition, it's resignation. A belief passed down like an heirloom that suffering is part of survival. Then there are the boys. We expected defiance, pride even, but the truth was more complicated. Some boys like Georgie, just 17, stood tall and confident, saying things like, "This is how it's always been. My dad bought my mom. I'll find my wife the same way." For him, this was structure, simplicity, a path laid out for him easy to follow. But not all felt that way. In a quiet corner leaning against a fence, we met Stefan. He was 19, dressed in jeans and a worn hoodie and clearly uncomfortable. "I don't want to buy someone," he said, avoiding eye contact. "I want to fall in love. But if I tell my parents that, they'll think I've lost my mind." That's the paradox of this world. Everyone's trapped in a tradition that no one quite knows how to challenge. The girls are afraid. The mothers feel powerless. The boys are torn between obedience and rebellion. It's a cycle, a machine. And even those who want to break it don't know where to begin. According to the Bulgarian Youth Integration Agency, only 1 out of 10 Roma youth who oppose the bride market dare to speak out within their community, fearing backlash, shame, or outright rejection from their families. And so silence reigns, but buried inside that silence are seeds of resistance. Girls like Lena who dare to speak, mothers like Milena who dare to doubt, boys like Stefan who dare to dream differently. Because no system, no matter how old, can survive forever if enough people begin to question it. And maybe, just maybe, these quiet voices from inside are exactly what this tradition fears the most. Number 5. Global and legal reactions. While the bride market might be defended by some as tradition, the rest of the world sees it very differently. From the streets of Sofia to the halls of the United Nations, global eyes are watching, and many are sounding the alarm. International human rights organizations, including Human Rights Watch and UNICEF, have publicly condemned the Kalaji bride markets as a form of forced child marriage, a direct violation of basic human rights, and more specifically, the rights of the child. In their latest joint statement released in early 2025, both agencies emphasized that no cultural tradition can override a girl's right to autonomy, education, and protection from exploitation. And here's the legal contradiction. Bulgarian law clearly states that the minimum legal age for marriage is 18. No exceptions. This is in full alignment with European Union guidelines and child protection frameworks. Yet in closed-off communities like the Kalaji, that law becomes a whisper easily ignored, quietly bypassed. Authorities often turn a blind eye, citing cultural sensitivity or community self-governance. But how do you uphold justice if it stops at the gates of tradition? The answer isn't easy, but the outrage is loud. Media outlets across Europe and North America have increasingly exposed the market in recent years. In 2024, The Guardian described it as a public auction of innocence. Der Spiegel in Germany went even further, calling it legalized trafficking dressed up as culture. These aren't just dramatic headlines, they reflect a growing frustration with the tolerance of harmful customs in the name of preserving identity. And it's not just talk. Some organizations are fighting back on the ground. Local Bulgarian NGOs like Our Association for Roma Equality and Future Without Fear have launched community outreach programs aimed at girls in at-risk villages. These programs offer legal counseling, mental health support, and perhaps most importantly, access to education. In 2025 alone, these groups helped more than 300 girls across southern Bulgaria stay in school and avoid early marriage. Meanwhile, international partners are stepping in with resources. The European Commission has earmarked over €6 million, approximately $6,500,000 in funding for Roma education and women's empowerment in the Balkans from 2025 to 2027. These funds support vocational training, mobile classrooms, and youth advocacy networks that give young Roma, especially girls, a chance to dream beyond the market. Still, challenges remain. Resistance inside the community is strong, and progress often comes with backlash. Some girls who seek help face social ostracization, even threats from their own relatives. In a heartbreaking case from 2023, a 16-year-old girl who tried to escape an arranged marriage was forced back home by extended family despite legal intervention. That's why support has to come from all directions, not just laws and aid, but attitudes. It's not enough to change the rules. We have to change the story, and that means shifting the narrative from shame and submission to strength and self-worth. Because here's the truth. This isn't about attacking tradition, it's about protecting children. And no tradition, no matter how sacred, should place a price tag on a person's future. The world is speaking up. The laws are in place. The resources are growing. But the final push, the one that will end this practice once and for all, has to come from both inside and out. From the mothers who dare to hope, the girls who dare to speak, and the governments who dare to act. Only then can we replace silence with safety, and replace markets with dreams. Number 6, a new wave of resistance. Hope often begins with a whisper, a quiet defiance against the weight of centuries. In Bulgaria's Kalaiji Roma community, that whisper is growing louder, carried by the voices of young women who are challenging the age-old traditions of the bride market. Take Visi, for instance. At just 14 years old, her parents attempted to arrange her marriage for 8,000 Bulgarian lev, but Visi resisted. She ran away, hid, and stood her ground. "I think selling girls is bulls and really old-fashioned," she declared. Her courage is not an isolated case. It's emblematic of a growing movement among young Kalaiji women who are asserting their right to choose their own paths. This resistance is not confined to individual acts of defiance. It's echoed in the broader community. According to a 2024 report by Girls Not Brides, the number of minor girls illegally married in Bulgaria remains significant, with 664 cases reported in 2018 and similar figures in subsequent years. However, there's a noticeable shift. More girls are staying in school, and the average age of marriage is gradually increasing. Social media has become a powerful tool in this transformation. Platforms like Facebook and TikTok are enabling young Roma women to share their stories, connect with others, and find support. These digital spaces are fostering a sense of solidarity and empowerment, allowing voices like Visi's to resonate far beyond their immediate communities. Moreover, the bride market itself is evolving. While it remains a significant cultural event, its nature is changing. The emphasis is shifting from transactional arrangements to more symbolic gatherings. Young people are increasingly choosing their own partners, sometimes even eloping, and the bride price is becoming more of a formality than a financial transaction. This evolution is not without challenges. Traditionalists within the community express concern that these changes may erode their cultural identity. Yet the younger generation is finding ways to honor their heritage while embracing modern values. They're redefining what it means to be Kalaiji, balancing respect for tradition with a desire for autonomy and self-determination. In this delicate dance between past and future, the voices of young women like Vise are leading the way. Their courage is not only reshaping their own lives, but also inspiring a broader reevaluation of customs that have long gone unquestioned. Tradition and human rights, two forces that, at their best, can coexist, but too often collide. What we've seen in the Kalaiji bride market isn't just a cultural ritual, it's a mirror reflecting the difficult questions many communities around the world must face. Can we honor our heritage without harming the future of our daughters? Can we preserve identity without placing a price on dignity? The truth is, change doesn't mean forgetting where we come from. It means choosing to protect what matters most: freedom, education, and the right to choose one's own path. and sometimes that change starts with just one step. So picture this, a young girl once dressed for sale, now walking away from the market head held high, not as someone purchased, but as someone rising. If this story moved you or made you think differently, we invite you to be part of the conversation. Like, share, or leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And for more untold stories from the edges of the world, don't forget to subscribe to NVL Travel Documentary. Thank you for watching and for choosing to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be.